It was as simple as that. I didn't do anything else. So much more confident coming out my second time. If you don't know your content, honey, you ain't gonna go nowhere. I had a clear mind, I had a clear heart, and I knew I was ready for this exam. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. I have been needing to make this video for quite some time, especially because I am officially a RN. Yes, girl. I officially passed my NCLEX and now I am a registered nurse, and that is super freaking exciting. I'm going to start introducing myself as Nurse Sierra, since that's what I am. Period. I'm a nurse because I passed my NCLEX. Y'all gonna be sick of me. But anyway, I want to let you guys know how I did on my exam, how I ended up passing my second try in 75 questions, what I did differently. I keep getting like a ton of questions, like what I did differently and stuff like that. So I kind of want to let you guys know, fill you in on all the tea, so that you guys who are studying for the NCLEX or preparing to study for the NCLEX can be ready, and just to know my input on what I did differently and how I would suggest you study for your NCLEX. Coming from someone who previously failed. Let's go ahead and get into the video. I graduated nursing school in May, and I took my first attempt at my NCLEX. I can't remember exactly, but I took my very first NCLEX at the end of June, and I studied for about a month before I sat for my NCLEX. And I used UWorld and I used Mark Clemec. So here's how I did everything for Mark Clemec. When I did Mark Clemec, I used all of Mark K's audios. At the time when I used them, they were all posted, and I had like a drive of every single one of his lectures. So I listened to all of his lectures. I handwrote all of his notes. A lot of you guys have previously saw my notes that were posted and things like that, and I'll leave them here. And I also want to post those notes so that they're available to you guys just to view them if you'd like to view them. But that's besides the point. I did listen to all of his lectures, and I handwrote all his notes, and literally all 12 of his lectures, not only the last lecture. A lot of people say that his last lecture is super important, but I listened to every single one of them. I didn't handwrite everything he said, but I handwrote all of the important information in his lectures. And a lot of those things stuck with me. He has a really good way of explaining everything and making things stick that should have previously stuck in nursing school, but he breaks it down to where it's super easy, super simple, and they were good tips. I also used UWorld. I ended up downloading UWorld or buying UWorld about, I would say, 2 weeks before I started studying. When I graduated, I took a week off from doing anything just to relax and take in my graduation, and then I started studying a week after I graduated, and I think I bought UWorld the week after or before I graduated. So I had UWorld for about 2 weeks, and I had just started doing like little questions here and there as I was at work. When I would go to work, I would always do questions, and I would say I did 75 questions a day. Every time I was at work, I would do 75 questions. When I wasn't at work, I would listen to Mark K and I would do 75 questions, and I would just go through the questions. I didn't necessarily have a strategic way of doing it. I just did practice questions. A lot of people would say, do it this way, set all subjects, all systems, and just test it that way, since that's how the NCLEX is. So that's exactly what I did. And I would say that initially I thought it was helpful because I had a wide array of questions that were similar to the NCLEX. Well, not necessarily similar, but I had a wide array of questions to where I was just like able to draw from the knowledge that I did have and try to answer questions that way. Mainly when I did UWorld, I was just doing like randomized questions, and I would just do that almost every single day. I didn't have a specific strategy. I didn't have a specific anything. I just knew that when I got a question wrong, I made sure to read over the rationales. I kept hearing read over rationales, read over rationales. So I used the tools on UWorld that allowed you to retype your notes, and so I typed them in, and I would flag it every time I got something wrong or it seemed like I wasn't grasping a certain subject. I would make notes over that in UWorld. I didn't handwrite any of my notes or anything like that. I just handwrote all of Mark K's lectures, and I did questions on UWorld. That is it. It was as simple as that. I didn't do anything else. I looked over my Saunders books for maternity, but that is it. I didn't use any other resources in terms of getting pharmacology. I thought I had everything I needed from Mark K, and my notes were pretty detailed. I'll leave pictures here of just like so you guys can have an example of what it was like. Thought I was doing everything right. When I sat for my NCLEX, I felt like the layout was totally different. The questions on UWorld were very detailed, and it was definitely a shock for me. I was very anxious, and I ended up getting all 145 questions on my NCLEX. Taking my NCLEX for the second time, I was like, you know what? I need to do things totally different. I am scratching all of Mark K. I wanted to erase him from my memory. I wanted to scratch off all of UWorld. I didn't want to pay another $300 because it was very expensive. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with Archer. I hear very good things about Archer. People who use Archer, you hear them like swear by Archer, and people who use UWorld, you hear them swear by UWorld. So I was taking a shot in the dark because obviously Mark K and UWorld didn't personally work for me. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, because I know plenty of people who have just used Mark K and UWorld and have done fine on the NCLEX. But for me, on the other hand, it just didn't work out for me that way. On my second attempt, I decided to go with Archer, and they had about I think it was like a $60 package. I spent between $60 and $70 on my package, and it came with unlimited assessments, it came with adaptive testing, and it also came with a larger qbank than UWorld. A qbank over, I think it was like 2,800 questions that I had on my Archer qbank, which was very, very nice because I felt like I got more bang for my buck, and it was really cheap. And I also thought that the questions were as vague as the NCLEX. And in terms of vagueness and in terms of looking just like the NCLEX and questions just like the NCLEX, Archer was it for me. In terms of UWorld, the questions were way too detailed for me, and the switch over was just like, I couldn't get my mind right there in that moment to like switch, and I was already very anxious for the exam. In terms of content for my second time around, I used NCLEX High Yield with Dr. Zishan, and honestly, he was amazing, y'all. When I tell you, he gave me all the testing strategies I needed, and he also made sure I was prepared in terms of content. Chef's kiss, that's all I can say, chef's kiss. So let's get a little detail into what it was like getting ready to take my NCLEX for the second time and all that stuff. So I ended up going with, like I said, Dr. Z, all of his lectures and stuff like that. So I listened to his lectures from beginning to about the end, and it was really good because Dr. Z is really good at getting you in the mindset. From the beginning, he was like, this is what we're gonna do, this was how we're gonna do it. Initially, he said to do all of the questions in your qbank at least one time. Also, Dr. Z recommends UWorld. I refuse to go with UWorld again, so I just used his methods with Archer, and I felt like they were very similar, so I just stuck with it. But he recommended doing 4 sets of 40 questions every day. So 4 sets of 40 questions, taking a break in between each set. So I would do 1 set of 40 of all subjects, all systems, and then I would do my next set of 40, and I would do a specific set. So say if I did specific questions over cardiac that day, I would do my first set of 40 with all systems, all subjects, and then my next set of 40 I would do specifically cardiac with all subjects. So like maternity cardiac, pediatric cardiac, all that stuff, all pharmacology, cardiac, all that stuff in terms of cardiac. And then I would keep doing it until all the questions would run out. That made it really helpful because after reviewing the notes and also going over all the questions, you had a better idea as in terms of what specifically you were getting wrong with that subject. And it was like very, very, very high yield studying and making sure that I was getting everything I needed in terms of studying hard for my boards exam, because he kept implementing, this is a boards exam, this is not like a nursing school exam, it is a boards exam. So I made sure to go hard when I was studying. That's exactly what I did. And then another thing that I did, he made sure to implement ask graph. So one thing that was specific to NCLEX High Yield was like these priority situations in terms of ask graph. And A stood for airway, S stood for sepsis, K for potassium, obviously if you know the ranges, G for glucose less than 70, R for lethargy, A for altered mental status, P for peritonitis, and H for hemorrhage. And when I went and sat for my NCLEX the second time, I made sure to write that down on my paper, and I prioritized every single one of those. Pretty much in every single question, you'll find one of those important aspects, and if it does fall under that specific thing, then you know that it's important and it matters and you're freaking out about it. That's exactly what I did. I wrote that on my paper, ask graph, going across the top. And then 2 more things that kind of got me through in terms of testing strategies from Dr. Z. He recommended to read the question from the last part all the way to the front part. So I started reading the last part of the question first. And the last part of the question would say something such as, what is the priority action for this nurse? Or what is the initial action that the nurse is going to do? Or which of these answers would indicate that the nursing student would need additional teaching? I would know right away what I was looking for in my answers. And then I would go back and I would read the first part of the question. Initially, when I took my NCLEX, I would just read the question straight up, and it would cloud my judgment. I would forget what I'm reading. I would forget what the question is asking me. I would have to read it over and over and over and over again. And I remember my first time sitting for my NCLEX, I literally read those questions like probably 7 to 10 times, freaking out, going crazy, versus my second time, I had a method to my madness. The NCLEX was not gonna fool me twice, you feel me? That's exactly what I did. I read the last part first, then went over the first part and knew exactly what the question was asking me. And then thirdly, or lastly, I would write down every single option. So if the question was A, B, C, D, I would write A, B, C, D, and I would read D first, and I would decide, is D incorrect or is D correct? And if it was incorrect, I would cross it off and I would go to C and I would decide, is C incorrect or is C correct? If C was correct, I would circle it. And then if B was incorrect, obviously I would know B was probably going to be incorrect and A was going to be incorrect. Circle it, move on. I didn't think twice about it. I didn't second guess it. It was nothing. I just, from my testing strategies, that's exactly what I did, and I left it at where it was at. I also did the same for select all that applies. And those are the basics that got me through my second attempt at the NCLEX. Now, to go a little deeper in terms of, like, you know, studying every single day and questions every single day, and this is exactly how I did it. So obviously I had to wait 45 days before I retested and getting my authorization to test and things like that with the Texas Board of Nursing. But in between that time, I listened to all of Dr. Z's lectures. Here are my notes. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys exactly how I did them. And he did his notes based off systems, so that's exactly how I did it. Here are all my notes from NCLEX High Yield. When I first started, he had this first episode kind of just going over the rule of 40s, 4 sets of 40s, and, you know, how to test, the 5 types of questions that you find on the NCLEX, ask graph, and how to prioritize each question or look for the things that you're freaking out about, and the method, which is reading the last part of the question first, put it in your own words, figure out what's happening, and start with the bottom and compare the options in regards to B, C, B, or D, C, B, and A. And then with each episode, I think he started with maternity. I went ahead and took all of my maternity notes, and even though I had previously already done this with Mark K, I wanted to do it again. I didn't want to use any notes that I used the first time, and I just rewrote them, and that's just what I did. I didn't want to, you know, hold on to anything. Obviously, there were notes that I remembered and specific tricks that I remembered from Mark K, since he does do such a great job. But I just kind of added to those and used all of Dr. Z's notes how he wrote them. And he did a really, really good job of going over the important things that they tested on boards and things that you need to know, such as, you know, medications and blah, 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 blah. So obviously this was respiratory. He went over pediatric respiratory and restrictive lung diseases and all that good stuff. And when it came to neuro or delegation, I wrote specific notes over that, specifically how to delegate. When it came to neuro, he went specific things over neuro, and I just wrote all of those things down. Cardio was also very important, so I made sure to write a lot over cardio and all of the high yield things, you know? GI was also very, 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 very important. So I specifically struggled a lot with GI information. So when it came to testing a second time for GI, I made sure, because I already knew that this was kind of a weak subject for me. It was also weak for me when I was in nursing school. Every time we just started talking about GI, I just kind of like zoned out, and it went in one ear and right out the other. It did not stick in my brain. So I knew right away the things that I kind of already struggled in. So when it came to GI, I was like, you know what? I need to get this down. And one thing that Dr. Z said that stuck with me, if you are anybody that also struggles with GI, he said pretty much everything can lead to peritonitis, which can lead to sepsis. So in general, GI notes, you've got perforation or rupture, which can lead to peritonitis, which can lead to sepsis. And literally for pediatric GI, adult GI, whatever the GI was, I knew that that was always something that could lead to something. And he also said, in general, the terms of GI conditions and what you want to do, you want to rest the gut, so make them NPO, IV fluids, and PPI to reduce acid. And so, like, he gave little tricks in there, here and there, to make it really easy to remember things as well, not just Mark K. But I also noticed that Mark K didn't go over a lot of things that Dr. Zishan went over. Like, he made sure, and he reiterized so many times, and he prioritized, you need to know your content. He said, if you don't know your content, honey, you ain't gonna go nowhere. You're gonna end up not doing well again. I knew my content when I went into my second exam because Dr. Z taught me versus Mark K, he just said, you have to do better than the average. You have to do better than the average. Versus Dr. Z, he said, nah, listen here, you're gonna be the best. You gotta know your information. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way around it. You just need to know what to do good on your boards. And so that's kind of what I got in my brain. I was like, I need to do well, and I'm gonna do well, and I'm gonna know my content. And I don't think it was so much of me not knowing my content the first time around, but I definitely think it was not necessarily going over everything. I hope that was kind of, you know, good in terms of describing everything that I went over in terms of content and how I kind of went over my content differently for my second attempt. Another thing that I did was write down all of my incorrect answers. So I specifically had tabs over incorrect answers for all subjects, my incorrect answers for safety and whatever that was. I think it was infection control, incorrect answers and rationales for respiratory, incorrect answers and rationales for cardiac. The things that I kept getting wrong, I made sure I had incorrect answers and rationales subject for. So this is when I did my randomized question sets over all types of subjects, over all types of questions. And I would literally just, when I was done with them, I would go over my rationales. Dr. Z made sure to say, don't skip writing down your rationales. Don't say, you know, don't do your questions and then decide to do your rationales the next day. No, you're gonna do it the day of. Write down those rationales, go over them, highlight them, understand what you're getting wrong. So that's exactly what I did, y'all. And I had like pages on pages on pages on pages of incorrect rationales. And obviously sometimes looking at this is a little overwhelming, like, oh my God, I don't know anything. Like I keep getting all these things wrong. No, sis, don't even think like that. It was great. So that's exactly what I did. I wrote down all my incorrect answers and rationales, and I would just look over them almost every other day. I didn't look over them every single day, but I did do questions every day. And then about 2 weeks before my exam, I scheduled my exam for 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So 2 weeks before my exam, I took off work and I made sure to make it a priority that every single day around between 2 and 3 p.m. to start getting my mind ready to sit for my NCLEX. So every single day between those times, I would start, you know, getting things ready to just unwind and get my computer out and get ready to sit for how long my exam was. My first time I took around 2.5 hours to take my exam. So I already knew that I was going to be sitting for about that time when I went for my second round as well. And then doing my 4 sets of 40 usually took about 2.5 hours to do all of those. So I would sit. Like I said, I would start studying and doing my NCLEX questions. I literally trained my mind to do exactly like I would the NCLEX, turn my phone off, put everything on Do Not Disturb. I even had headphones because you're allowed to wear like these sound blockers. So I put those on when I was testing or getting ready to test for my second attempt as well. And I did my 4 sets of 40. I would start questioning. I would literally do, oh, this is kind of similar to how I did it. So I would set it to obviously open up a blank page because it's similar to when you sit for the NCLEX and you have your whiteboard, and I would write out every single A, B, C, D, E for every single question. And then every time, like, I would sometimes get confused of what the question was asking, I would mark it, okay, here we're looking for the wrong answer. Here we're looking for the wrong answer. We don't want the right answer, we want the wrong answer. So like, for example, what action would indicate that the nurse needs additional teaching? So we're not going to be looking for the right thing, we're going to be looking for the wrong thing. And like, I would always write those down to make sure that I didn't get myself confused, that I was clicking the right thing, because sometimes if I didn't read the question good enough, I found myself doing that. So this is an example of exactly how I did and would write down when I was doing my testing, and I did the exact same method for when I sat for my NCLEX. So I would do 40 questions, take a 5-minute break, go get some water, walk around, and then I would go right back to my another set of 40 questions, take a 5-minute break, you know, get something to drink, walk around until I finished all my sets of 40. I did that for 2 weeks leading up to my exam. And honestly, that trained my mind, that trained my body to just be ready at that time, to go all in, to be, you know, calm down and ground myself. So that also was super, super helpful in terms of getting me ready for my second attempt. Can't think of anything else specifically other than just getting myself in the right mindset, reminding myself that I know my content. So many times I had to get myself out of going down the loophole of thinking that, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh my God, I'm gonna fail again, and all these things. I kind of had to get myself out of that mindset, and I did. And I reminded myself every day, you know what? I know my content. I finished the hard part. I graduated nursing school. I can do this. And also, I've sat for my NCLEX once, so I can sit for it again. I know what to expect and all those things. So that's exactly what I did, and ultimately it came out obviously working out in the end, and I did so well my second time around. I will say that I felt so much more confident coming out my second time. Also, another thing that helped me, I did a lot of grounding exercises. So when it came to about my 70th question on my second attempt, I started to get really anxious. I was like, oh my God, what if it doesn't turn off at 75? Also, if it doesn't turn off at 75, it doesn't matter. There's people who pass at 80 questions. There's people who pass at 90. There's people who pass at all 145. So don't think that if you go to 145 questions, if you go to 90 questions, that you failed. That doesn't mean that. But I had to kind of get myself out of that mindset as well. But I also couldn't help but to think, okay, if it goes past 75, my heart is going to drop to the bottom of my feet. So I got to question 70. I was like, okay, I feel myself getting a little anxious. I'm going to take a break. I literally put my hands on the desk and I took a deep breath in, I took a deep breath out, and I did a grounding exercise that kind of brings me back to the present moment. And obviously I learned this grounding technique with my therapist. Many of you guys know that I ended up going to therapy after I didn't do well with my first NCLEX, and she kind of helped me with reminding me like, hey, you got this. She also told me that she had to take her boards about 3 or 4 times when she took her boards to become a therapist. So pretty much all I did was close my eyes and I reminded myself of 5 things that I could feel right now, 4 things that I could taste right now, or 3 things that I could smell, and 2 things that I could feel, and 1 thing that I can see. And that kind of brought me back to the present moment, and I was like, you know what? Period, I got this. And so I went back to writing A, B, C, D, E for every single question. I even had select all that applies that went up to F. And so I wrote A, B, C, D, E, F, and I just did the same system. F, is it right or is it wrong? Cross it out. E, is it right or is it wrong? Yes, it's right, circle it. D, is it right or is it wrong? Yes, it's right, circle it. You know, B, is it right or is it wrong? It's correct. Moved on. I didn't think twice about it. I was super confident. I knew my material. I knew exactly what the questions were asking me. I had a clear mind. I had a clear heart, and I knew I was ready for this exam. And then when I got to the 75th questions, click next, and it cut off. And I was like, in that moment, I knew nothing could convince me that I failed that exam. I 100% knew, and I definitely give all props to, number 1, obviously God, period. He was with me the whole time. Number 2, Archer Review, you did your thing. And number 3, Dr. Zishan with NCLEX High Yield, you literally saving grace. He gave me everything I needed to go into my second NCLEX well prepared, well ready, and confident that I know my content, and confident with the testing strategies that he taught. And that is how I did it. That's exactly how I did it. So if you guys are watching this video because you are interested in how I did it, that is literally it. If there was something I did not include, I will definitely make sure to include it down in the description box, so make sure you check that out. But yeah, that was it, you guys. I am just honestly so proud to be able to say that I have officially passed my NCLEX. You know, proud of myself to say that I'm done and ready for what's next in terms of finding a new job. Obviously, that's still a thing for me and whatever. But I'm just excited to say that I officially passed my NCLEX, and I am a registered nurse, and I deserve to finally be able to say that, and I'm so excited that I can, and I want you guys to finally be able to say that too. If you are a repeat test taker or are planning to take your NCLEX, remind yourself that you got this. You are capable, you are able, you are smart, you are already a nurse. It's already yours, period. And I had to remind myself that too. I'm like, God wouldn't take me this far to fail me. I literally thought, I was like, I'll never be a nurse. Oh my God, I'm gonna fail so many times. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go into real estate or whatever the case was. Came up with all these scenarios. Don't even go down the rabbit hole. 2 days before my exam, since I did take it in the afternoon, I think on a Friday. So on Thursday, was it Wednesday? I studied on Wednesday. Thursday morning, I looked over content, you know, took the day really, really easy. I just went over like incorrect rationales. I didn't do any questions or anything like that. Took the day easy. Friday, obviously, took the day really, really easy. I went and got coffee. I took the day super, 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 super chill. Went for a walk. It was raining that morning, and I love the rain. It already calms me, so it kind of all worked out. I ended up leaving my house at around 1:30, so I got to my testing center around 2:15. Gave myself plenty of time to find, you know, the testing room and things like that. Check-in went smooth, and I was confident, I was calm, and I was like, it's in God's hands. I'm ready for this test, and I know that I've done everything that I can do in terms of studying for this exam. And yeah, you guys can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it. And I'm so proud to say I did it. Honestly, still in shock, and I give myself pats on the backs and find myself like numerous times throughout the day like, wow, I'm a nurse, period. That's crazy. 2 days after my exam, took my exam on a Friday. Saturday, my results were not posted. They were posted on Sunday around, I think, like 1 o'clock. So I ended up checking. I was like, you know, let me just check the board of nursing. And after I took my exam, I actually went home and did the little trick, and the Pearson VUE trick did work for me. So I was also like feeling really good about it because it worked for me my second time around, which it did not work for me my first time. And also, if you haven't seen my original NCLEX video where I ended up failing and cried, you should go check it out because it was really good. And I like to be open with y'all about like everything that, you know, is going on in my journey and stuff like that. So y'all should definitely check it out. And yeah, but long story short, my license number was posted on Sunday at around 1 p.m. and I literally logged on. I didn't even think it was going to be posted. I went online because I was at work. I had finally went back to work. I checked online and it said like post exam, and I was like, is this my, nah, that ain't it. I was like, is this my, this can't be. And then I was like, it can be. I'm a nurse. I'm a whole nurse. And I was super excited, but I couldn't scream or cry or anything like that because I was at work. So it kind of like, you know, whatever. I didn't get any live footage or anything of it, but I was still super, super, super excited. And then I went around telling all the nurses because they had been praying for me and they knew that I didn't do well my first time around. And they were like, oh my God, we're so excited for you and stuff like that. So anyway, long story short, that is it. That is everything that I did. I will include everything down below that I need to include. But yeah, that is it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the description box. I am forever rooting for you guys, new grad nurses, those who just graduated, those who just started their residency, those who are still figuring it out. I'm still rooting for you. This nursing journey is not easy. Sometimes it is confusing, sometimes it is sad, sometimes it is questionable, all of the above. But I'm rooting for you and I'm so proud of you and how far you come. And yeah, I'm with you. Forever with you. Love you, sis. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to always be kind and love yourself and others, and always go out and try your best. And don't forget to what was I about to say? Next time you say my name, make sure you put nurse in front of me. Bow, 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 bow. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.